Okay, let's go over the tricky parts for you. So first of all, the head strokes. I would keep them pretty simple. So let's just do a little curve here, a little curve here, a little curve here. So it's kind of a stepwise situation there. Sometimes you're tempted to put one in here, which is fine. So then again, you're going to repeat the same thing, a little curve here, and they kind of touch, a little curve here, a little curve here, and you might want to put another one there. And that would be all I would do for the head. Now the transition is important and is tricky. So we're going to come out of this last longer stroke. And, you know, if you felt more comfortable, what you could do is do like an intermediate stroke here, and then one long stroke here. And this would be where we would begin the transition. So the transition is going to start here and fan out. My cat keeps wanting food, and it's not food time yet. And then we have this transition line coming here. And then this one that is, so you have this kind of equidistant spacing here to here, kind of to here. So we want to start this one about here and bring it up, and it fans out. Now, honestly, I have been working with beauty angels so much that I kind of forget how this part is done in Phi brows, but in beauty angels we do a C shape right about here. And I think that that can be actually useful, because then you're going to bring your spine coming out of that gap between those two transition strokes. And, you know, I'm going to assume you're doing a spine 6, but part of the problem could be that you're doing spine 6 when it should be spine 5 or spine 3 or something like that. So I suppose we should review some of that as well. Okay, so we're going to start with just the individual long strokes, and we're coming up and we're bringing them up and a little bit, curving in to the transition line. Just go nice and slow. Take your time. Equidistant. And they are getting flatter as we're going. Not really necessarily longer, but somewhat. And then you get here, and then this is where that flat line would go, and I will wait for that because that is a problem. I don't like that stroke. So I wait and do that at the end. Now let's come and do the upper strokes, and we're going to be bringing those down, just really touching the spine, but absolutely not curving down. We don't want them to be curving down and pointing toward the base. They still have to have an overall sense of reaching toward point 3, so that by the time we're here, and certainly here, that's what's happening. There's no curving inward. And then for the tail, I do one like this, then one like this, then one like this. Now let's go in and do the intermediate strokes. So starting with the bottom, we're going to come up and over and definitely sweep up onto the transition line. The spine. Man, sorry, it's too many different programs that I'm dealing with here. The spine, not transition line. It's not even called that anywhere. This intermediate stroke coming over and curving on to the spine. This one coming up and curving over on to the spine. This one coming up, curving over onto the spine. This one coming up, curving over onto the spine. And we'll just do this one more, curving onto the spine. But don't go nuts. Don't go down and close it or anything. You have to leave that open. Now we'll do filling in the head strokes. 1, 2, because we're at the spine now. 1, 2, 3. Now, about here, you're going to start getting longer with those strokes, because you're really going to be reaching toward point 3 and also closing, like I just did right there, intersecting with and closing with the strokes that are curving with the spine. So I like to make these pretty long and sweeping. Just intersecting as we go, knowing that we have room here with these little guys to add more. And then remember that flat line I said hold off on? Now you can put it in, because now you can see where it really needs to go without throwing everything off. That's the most common line that I end up having to saline out of the situation with saline solution. Now, I wouldn't stop there. I would come in here and start adding some embellishment on the lower strokes. Just a little, it's called dog foot, little diagonal. And that helps kind of close up that empty space that's in there. As long as whatever you're adding is at a different angle from everything else, then you're good. Oh, and I would probably add a little something here. But, you know, you're working on a live person, not on latex, so it's a messier situation. Depends on how much hair they have and what you're having to deal with. So that's what that would look like. But now you have to try to get it transferred over to the other side the same. So whatever point you might have done this, maybe you've done this ahead of time or what, but I usually wait until after I've done the first brow to set this. So I'm going to measure the distance between my first strokes and my first transition line, come over here. And really, I'm doing this with medical marker at the time, making a little mark up here. And then you want to count the number of strokes that you have on the bottom here. Main strokes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how many you're going to want over here. You haven't cut anything yet, so you can, with your pencil, be doing this. First, draw in the transition, the spine, which is going to be, you know, measure where it is beginning. And it begins right here. And, you know, you've got your 0.6 here. So get that sketched in with your pencil. And then you have, I can't remember what I said, so I have to count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, really. And what the main thing I'm worried about at all is that my angle is the same. So I get those drawn in there. I'm also going to count the number of head strokes, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on the tail. So just put a mark right about here where your spine starts, and then one right here over the arch, and then divide that into just like that. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I said you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not counting the tail. So that's where we are, not counting the tail. So now we're prepared. You know, you work from behind for that side. So you're going to do your head strokes, just keeping it simple, of a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and maybe a little boops there. And then a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a little intermediate stroke. And then let's just do a middle, you know, stroke like that in between. And then one long from top to bottom curving stroke. Now we're ready to begin the transition strokes. So we've got this one that curves out, and then this one, which is going to, the spine is going to feed out of. Then this one here, which opens up like a fan, and it's just the main thing you want to be aware of is that you're equidistant with all these little guys, and you are, or I am. And then, like I say, I honestly cannot remember if Phi Brows does this or not, because I've been working so much with Beauty Angels, but you're going to, it's just not, kind of a nice connection stroke. That's what they call it even. So then you wheel around your client, and I would just take your medical mark. Well, see, by this point you've broken skin. So there's nothing that you can do. You can't use your medical marker. You can see here that we estimated, or I estimated, the spine starting a little bit higher than it should be, because it should be starting about here. So you're just going to have to adjust for that, because you've already made your, I mean, what you can do is with ink, with pigment, do that on, if you can get through the client's hair. That's always the tricky part, is their hair. And don't be afraid to trim it down quite a bit. I mean, don't shave it, but trim it down as much as you need to. Okay, so we have the basic idea of our lower strokes, of the angle at which they're going to come up and slightly intersect with the spine, and how many there are going to be. Slightly intersecting with the spine, or merging with it is a better term, I guess. I think we said we had 6 on the other side, and so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. All right, now let's get the the skeleton of the head strokes in there. So that's why I have these little dashed marks in here, kind of as places to tell me they're kind of the, I don't begin there, I'm kind of beginning in between the two. Just be really careful with this one. This one here that is, you know, like in between the spine and everything else, just don't do anything with it quite yet. Just get it drawn in there and we'll come back to it later. And then I'm doing the tail like that. Okay, now you roll your chair back behind the client. And we're going to start putting in the intermediate strokes, and those we are going to carry on through the spine. All this time, you're stretching the client's skin with a very firm 3-point stretch. And bringing, where I am working right now, this is actually eyelid skin. So you want to be pulling that up onto the bone, because otherwise it's going to hurt, but it won't hurt if it has bone underneath it. I'm still not doing anything about that flat line. I hate that flat line. It always is the line I regret. So that's why I wait till the very end to do it. And I'm just coming in here now and putting in the head strokes. One of the things about the transition stroke that is a problem is sometimes we make it up too high and it's sitting there coming right outside of the brow. We don't want to do that. So purposely make it below the line. Okay, so here we are, this kind of crucial one. This one, at this point, your strokes are getting longer, and you're definitely going to be hitting, intersecting with, as I just did there with that last one, the spine. Now coming in with the second set of tail strokes. Not really going to carry it through yet because I need to get everybody populated here. And now let's work on the tail itself. Now I come over to here and I make that flat one that I should have made before, but it's just, it's always turns out to be about in the wrong place. Okay, so cleaning that off, and literally what I do is I'm standing behind the client, and the last thing that I do is I add embellishment. So there might be some little things that I add in here at the head, depending on how sparse I feel the head is. I mean, what you do on one, you have to do on the other. But, you know, that's kind of sparse. So I might add some. Of course, each one of these things you add, you're going to have to fill. You might want to add a little something there. You might want to come in like this here. All of this is dependent on what the client has in terms of natural hair. But these little dog legs are kind of a standard thing. As long as they're coming at a different angle from any of the other strokes and not intersecting anything, then they're fine. So I guess I should have asked you before doing this what you feel like your problem area is.